This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Whether you love true crime or comedy, celebrity interviews or news, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue. And guess what? Now you can call them on your auto insurance too with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. It works just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. Get your quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Hey, welcome into the latest episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. Hi, hey there, hi, hello. It's the May 9th. It's incoming Paul Skenes weekend, and something that we are excited to talk about on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, along with many other topics. My name is Tyler Mon, your friendly neighborhood host, along with our other friendly neighborhood hosts in a different neighborhood, Sam Dykstra and Benjamin Hill. Dudes, you're looking very it just looks like a good day where you are. It's like a nice backdrop. It looks like you're sitting in a Mad Men office because of the office buildings behind you that give off like a 50s, 60s vibe.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're in 1271 Avenue of the Americas. That's prime territory for, well, it's not Madison Avenue,
but this is the building where Mad Men moved to.
Right.
Yeah. Right. They moved to the Time Life building. We currently work in the Time Life building. So who's the Don Draper? Who's the Cooper Draper Price of all of this? I don't know. You guys can decide.
You're both Pete.
No, I refuse. I absolutely refuse. Give me Stan. Stan is somebody who
I know. Stan is like your icon.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of fashion, in terms of
to you also, like with the beard currently going, like you.
I saw myself in Stan. That's all I'm going to say.
I know you did, and
he has a happy ending. You know,
I get it. Stan's great. Yeah, Stan's an awesome. He's a perfect Sam Dykstra character. He's so lovable. He's friendly to everybody. He's awesome, and he has a good ending. It's like exactly what we want for Sam Dykstra.
Stan Dykstra.
Stan Dykstra. Which is what we also call big fans of Sam, Stan Dykstras.
They're legion.
Well, fellas, it's good to see you. Before we fully dive into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, I have two topics that I want to just get crossed off the list. First, wherever you found us, thanks for hanging out with us. You can get in touch, podcast@milb.com, and let us know, rating, reviews, all of that, only if they're 5 stars and nice. We have a listener, a longtime listener of the Show Before the Show podcast, who mailed us a baseball to sign, which I'm currently holding up on our Zoom call. Now, here is my issue. You guys took good signing spots. Ben's on one side of the MLB label, Sam's on the other, which there is room under each of these to sign, which I guess is what I'll probably do, but it left the sweet spot. The sweet spot is open for business. The level of like arrogance, if I sign on the sweet spot, I can't handle, but I'm going through so much anxiety of like, do I sign on Ben's side or do I sign on Sam's side or do I just sign somewhere else?
Sign the sweet spot. I mean, we call you sweet spot.
Do that. Tyler Sweet Spot Mon.
I'm not nearly cool enough to be in the sweet spot. If anybody, Josh Jackson should be in the sweet spot. Maybe I'll just go on top. I'll go above.
He's like lost in the woods. He's not. A
Josh signed a different ball completely that is somehow covered in moss.
Josh will sign like a weird, like mildewy ball that he found outside of like a ballpark, from the main guides in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. So that's one thing. The second topic that I wanted to discuss, and I am glad that we were called on this by an international listener of the Show Before the Show podcast. It was very cool to hear from Paul Frame, who is in the county of Essex in the United Kingdom, who got in touch with us and said that we were talking about the John Goodman bobblehead, which is being distributed by the Springfield Cardinals coming up in August. And Paul Frame, it took a British baseball fan, a UK baseball fan, to point out one role that we did not mention of John Goodman's. We talked about John Goodman. Everybody loves everything John Goodman does. One role that we did not mention of John Goodman's, he played Babe Ruth in The Babe, which came out in 1992. And Paul said, quote, "As a UK baseball fan, I've not seen the film in the cinema myself. So is it because the film is not a good one that it was omitted? That's a really good question. I think I was 6 or 7 when that movie came out. I remember thinking it was great. I know that it is the movie. This is a very weird memory to have, but it's a movie where I learned the word incorrigible. His one of his teachers at the orphanage where Babe Ruth was living as a child referred to him as incorrigible, and I just, for whatever reason, that hooked into my brain like, oh yeah, that word from the Babe. But I don't know. I thought it was a good movie. Do you guys have any thoughts on The Babe? I am a little disappointed that we didn't bring this up.
Yeah, well, here's the context for this is we were talking about John Goodman because we're talking about bobbleheads in the minors coming up, and a notable one being Springfield Cardinals doing a John Goodman bobblehead. John Goodman is a big St. Louis Cardinals fan, a Missouri guy, and also a fan of their AA team in Springfield. But what I would point out to Paul is we didn't mention any John Goodman roles. I mean, we had a lot to get to, so we just didn't really we didn't like talk about
I
this,
thought
that,
maybe
and the
we had
other.
been like, Lebowski or
Yeah, we didn't
like
mention
that.
anything else, but that would have been an easy thing to mention that he did literally play Babe Ruth
He did.
shortly after he played King Ralph, which was a box office bomb, as I recall. But I can't remember if I saw the movie. I might have. Tyler, I'm like you. I remember things like that, like where I learned certain words. But I can't recall if I saw that movie or not. I was like, oh yeah, wasn't it Tommy Lee Jones? But no, he played Todd Cobb.
He did
My
play
God,
Todd Cobb.
right.
So I don't know.
I
Maybe
will
I'll have to have a
say
rewatch.
The Babe does not have very good reviews. It has 5.9 on IMDb. Sam, do you have any thoughts about The Babe? Do you remember The Babe? Were you even born when this came out?
I would have been, would you say it was 1992 that it came out?
92.
Yeah, so I would have been 2 years old. So I did not see it in theaters, I can tell you that much. I have seen it. I think it just doesn't come up because it's not really in the baseball pantheon
Yeah, which is kind of
of
weird.
baseball
know?
movies. I remember John Goodman growing up. Like I thought, and I saw him in a bunch of different stuff, and Roseanne was like on a bunch when I was growing up, but I didn't necessarily think of him as that. I always thought of he looks a lot like Babe Ruth.
He does.
I was thinking that when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and he was Fred Flintstone. Like when he got to play
he
Fred
was.
Flintstone in
In the
the
live action Flintstones movie.
yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, that's perfect casting too. I just thought he was kind of a chameleon in that way, and now I know him more for like Lebowski or anybody who's ever seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and he essentially plays Cyclops in that, and has a better swing in that than he might in The Babe, to be honest with you, in one iconic scene. But yeah, I think there's just like so many roles for John Goodman for us to think of when we go there, and also there's just so many other baseball movies that like The Babe doesn't really come. I wouldn't put it in the top 10 baseball movies ever.
Oh yeah.
Just
No, that's true.
this we're not trying to rag on a movie that's
Right.
32 years old at this point, but
We're gonna
that's
get
just
John
explaining our
Goodman.
reasoning.
John Goodman's gonna call into the podcast and be like, what is up with you three jerks?
Hey, I would have tons of good things to ask John Goodman if he wants to come on the show.
Yeah, I thought it was good. We haven't had a good baseball movie in a while. It's been a while. We haven't had a good sports movie, I feel like, in a while. I don't know what the last like really good sports movie I saw was.
Ford versus Ferrari was very good.
Oh, that was
sports
good.
movie.
That's true. That was good.
Why is that the last one that I can think of?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
don't know. The last good sports movie I saw was Ladybug, starring Rodney Dangerfield, where he's a girl
filmed.
soccer coach. Yeah.
Filmed at least as urban legend had it. I guess I could look it up on the internet, but filmed at Kent Denver Academy, like the richest of the Richie Rich schools, well, formerly in this area. And I remember when we played baseball there, they'd be like, "Do you know that movie Ladybugs was filmed over here on this soccer field?" I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't.
I will say the last like truly great baseball movie that immediately comes to mind is Everybody Wants Some. If you are at all a fan of baseball or college baseball or trying to understand what a locker room dynamic is like and what a team dynamic is like, 10 out of 10 nails it.
I will say, did not see it. Wanted to see it. Completely forgot about it until you brought it up just now. But it does have a point higher rating on IMDb than The Babe, the 1992 cinematic John Goodman vehicle, The Babe. So anyway, there. Now we've covered The Babe. Let's get into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, and we are going to kick things off with a dive into Ben's first road trip of the season. Ben was on the West Coast. By the way, Ladybugs was actually filmed at Kent, Denver. Whew, very happy to know that that's true.
I just want to throw out another sports movie recommendation before I forget. The Iron Claw that came out about professional wrestling.
Oh, see, I never saw that either.
That's so good. That was really good as well. Sorry, that just came to mind. So
I might need
anyway.
to rewatch Ladybugs just to see if I recognize all these locations now that I'm an adult. I don't think I saw Ladybugs after it came out, which I believe it was the same year as The Babe, by the way, 1992. None of this matters. Let's talk about Ben's road trip. Ben was on the Golden Coast in California and is back now in the Big Apple, and it's got to be good. I mean, the road trips obviously are always good, and I would imagine there's a lot of appreciation for them now after a couple of years in which you couldn't really do them. But going to California has got to be a fun trip for you because you get to see a lot of places that you've seen before, but probably haven't seen in a while. And it seems like it was a great trip.
Yeah, I had a good time. And, in the last podcast, it was actually just a segment with Sam and I was expressing all my pre-road trip anxiety, which is something I deal with before every road trip, especially the first one of the year. And, yeah, I can struggle a little bit heading out. And then usually, it's like same things like getting on stage or giving a speech. Like once you're just doing something, even if it's not going perfectly, it's just better to do something than to think about doing it. So I'm glad I went out there. And yeah, Tyler, like you said, has been outside of a couple games in Fresno in 2019. I hadn't done like a California specific trip or a trip that had a lot of California ballparks in it since I believe 2016, 2017, all the ballparks I visited on this trip, San Jose, Stockton, Modesto, in reverse order. San Jose, Modesto, Stockton, Sacramento. I hadn't been to in 8 years, so it was a good time to get back out there. And yeah, it started in San Jose. I want to call it Municipal Stadium because that's what it was known as for many years. But it is now Excite Ballpark. It is, I believe, the 6th or 7th oldest ballpark in all of minor league baseball, the oldest west of the Mississippi. I kind of fell in love with that place when I went in 2016 and always wanted to go back. And so it was great to be back and to start my travels there. The newsletter coming out the same day as this podcast, Friday, May 10th, will include a pretty thorough recap of my night in San Jose. So be on the lookout for that. Actually, the newsletter's out now for all those subscribers of the Ben's Biz Beat. Man, those alliteration is bringing me down.
I think if you do food reviews exclusively in newsletters, though, those ones should be called the Ben's Biz Eat.
Yeah, they really should. But this is the Ben's Biz Beat, which does have some food content and a separate standalone San Jose story on Friday. Yeah, this ballpark, as I said before, it was great to be back. As an East Coast guy and, growing up a Phillies fan, I have a special spot in my heart for Reading. And I always look at San Jose. I'm the only person I've seen make this comparison. Maybe it's a little obscure, but I feel like San Jose is the Reading of the East Coast and, vice versa. Ballparks that are old, that were formerly called Municipal Stadium, that have a lot of character, with artwork, a carnival-esque type of atmosphere, deep-rooted traditions, a parent club that is in close proximity to the team itself, and therefore fans, who really are more engaged with the team because they often root for the parent club. There's just so much going for San Jose with those reasons. They had a mural painter, sign painter for years, who was just decorated like the exterior, the concourse, everywhere, with just franchise legends, ballpark legends, just baseball quotes, pennants of defunct minor league teams. It's the kind of place, it's very no frills, but just walking around, you can absorb, just so much. And so I got there and bam, okay, I'm back on the road and just dove right into it. It was Beer Batter Thursday. We talked to assistant GM Matt Alongi. I should have asked him exactly how to pronounce his last name. Sorry, Matt. He's the assistant general manager of San Jose. We had him on the podcast a couple years back about their Beer Batter identity, one of their alternate identities, but that stems from Beer Batter being a huge tradition at this ballpark with this team where, you designate a random guy on the opposing team as the beer batter. If he strikes out, I think beer is half price for the next 15 minutes. I talked to a fan named Ben Hemmen, who is like the primary cheerleader for on those Beer Batter Thursdays, rooting for that guy to strike out. And the beer batter is Romeo. He was on Lake Elsinore Storm. Romeo
Sanabria.
yeah.
The fact that I know that is
Yeah. I looked at
he
stats,
is a
like,
Padres prospect, and I have the Padres system. So
yeah,
probably, but
Romeo Sanabria, he was the beer batter, and he struck out 3 times, more than any player in the game. The first 2 of those were when the beer batter promo were in effect. Unfortunately, I was running around doing other things and didn't get to see the little mini stampede to the beer line afterwards. But that's like a really cool tradition. Talked to their new PA announcer who replaces an icon in the booth, Russ Call, a guy named Cody Pasby. Now trying to be an icon in his own right. This is the kind of ballpark where you can become an icon more easily because it's just so deep rooted in traditions. One of the 2 retired numbers at the ballpark is Len Sakata, the name you might remember. He had about a decade-long career, utility man in the majors, went on to become the winningest manager in California League history, including 3 stints with San Jose. He's a San Jose Giants legend, and he was in town as a roving instructor. And I was like, yeah, you think Len would want to do an interview? So it was cool to talk to him about his memories at that ballpark and the work he's doing now as a roving instructor. So that was really cool. My designated eater was a guy named Matt Burns, who listeners of this podcast who are into the road trip scene might know him. He's on Twitter or X at Mapping the Path. He has a website, Mapping the Path, and every year for the last 3 seasons, he's gone on big sprawling road trips with his dad. And his next one is starting. It's like 23 teams in 23 days, including the entirety of the Midwest League, I believe. And he's embarking on that soon. But he told me that he fell in love with San Jose, with minor league baseball in San Jose at Excite Ballpark. And so it was cool to meet him. The food is phenomenal at that ballpark. There's Turkey Mike's, which is located down the third base side of the ballpark, a big standalone barbecue spot. I can't think of any other ballparks that have just basically like a standalone barbecue restaurant. So he had the heater, a jalapeno topped hot link with pulled pork, the big filthy burger, which is like a double cheeseburger with pulled pork mac and cheese. The more I think about it, there's a lot of pulled pork. And then the one thing he ate that was not from Turkey Mike's was garlic fries. And, that's a San Francisco thing, certainly San Jose thing as well. They have a standalone concession stand that is just garlic fries. And then Paul Super Churros Man Cerda was there, the legendary vendor. I did a story on him last time I visited in 2016. He now has a little standalone stand, a separate churros only concession stand. So he still does some vending, which is what he was really known for, walking around the ballpark. But now he has a spot that wasn't the case last time, where he can, make it right there on site and sell right where he makes the churros. So good to see Paul again. And another thing I did there was this is a great between inning contest. They have a horse race, and what it is just a bunch of wooden horse heads on sticks, and members of the grounds crew go behind the outfield fence and hold up these horse heads on sticks, so the fans in the stands can only see the horse heads, they don't see the sticks. And these grounds crew members just run behind the outfield fence with these horses, and they have a nightly horse race. So those kind of traditions, the beer batter, the horse race, Turkey Mike's, franchise legends like Len Sakata, who you can just maybe meet at the ballpark like I did that night. All the art at the ballpark. It's just like a really unique place. So I know I'm a champion of minor league baseball, but even being positive about just about everything, San Jose to me stands out. So it was great to be back at that ballpark. And if you've never been, check it out. Built in 1942.
Yeah. And how does San Jose kind of fit like that ballpark and just that club? Because San Jose, obviously, on one side, it's big enough for an NHL team, right? The San Jose Sharks play there. It's a big market, but yet it's a single A team. Like you say, it's quaint. It's got this old style character to it. How does that kind of fit within the city itself?
Yeah, it's a little bit of an anomaly because, I think San Jose pretty early on declared itself, the capital of Silicon Valley. I stayed in a hotel in downtown San Jose that was basically across the street from, a big Zoom headquarter building. There's like about 1 million people in the city. So it is, could support minor league baseball at a level higher than Class A, single A. So it is a bit of an anomaly with San Jose being now seen as a kind of not futuristic, but tech hub, and very much in the now in terms of its industry It's great. And then, speaking of San Jose Sharks, and this was new from the last time I visited, the San Jose Barracuda, no plural, San Jose Barracuda, their AHL, American Hockey League affiliate, now play in an arena that's located just beyond the outfield fence, and they share a parking lot, which when both seasons are in swing, that can maybe be logistically difficult. And there was actually some members of the Barracuda front office staff there. One bad thing about it is that complex, obscures somewhat the view of the Santa Cruz Mountains behind the ballpark, but it is pretty cool that you have these two minor league operations just literally next door to each other, in the San Jose Barracuda and the San Jose Giants. Also interesting that San Jose Sharks, large enough to support a hockey team, but so that market is now has an NHL team and their top affiliate in the same market, which reminds me as a kid when I used to see the Philadelphia Phantoms, the Flyers AHL affiliate, and that's the only hockey I would go to because I could afford it. But pretty cool. That's the same way that St. Paul's affiliated with the Minnesota Twins, that kind of thing. Like, just to have top affiliate and major league club in the same market is pretty unique.
And they have Macklin Celebrini on the way, which I know Sam is very excited about. As a San Jose Sharks fan, I don't know why. Why would you be excited about that? What am I?
I want all good things for BU boys in the NHL. You know this, so I just hope he ends up in a good situation. If he wants to come back to school for 1 year, Macklin, come back. We'd welcome you with open arms. But no, he's probably on the way out.
All right, Ben, what are some of the other, you got to go to Sacramento for the first time since 2016. Sacramento's in a very interesting situation, obviously. Stockton, you swung by. What were some of the other highlights of these stops?
Yeah, well, let's just do in order. And I did not do that much driving on this trip. One, it's a shorter itinerary than I did in the past. And two, they're all pretty close by. So Modesto, I didn't even spend the night in Modesto. I drove there from San Jose and poked around downtown Modesto for a while, saw the Modesto Arch, kind of a big welcome sign with the Modesto motto of, what is it? Water, wealth, contentment, health. So go to Modesto if you want those four things. Pretty good four things to have.
Yeah, no, I mean,
poked around the downtown. Like, there were a lot of main streets closed off for a First Friday event. I don't know the specifics of that, but live music, vendors, all that kind of thing. There's some signs in the downtown related to Modesto car culture. George Lucas's first, his breakout hit pre-Star Wars was American Graffiti, and George Lucas is from Modesto, and American Graffiti is about the car culture there, that George Lucas was part of as a kid. So the city really leans into that, hometown of George Lucas and classic cars and American Graffiti, which reminds me, I didn't even make this connection when I was there, but the first time I went to Modesto in 2013, I was driven out onto the field in a convertible, waving to the fans. And that did not happen this time around. I think in 2013, yeah, whatever. I don't need to get into all the specifics, but it was kind of a different era in minor league baseball in a lot of ways. But I was like, oh, yeah, I drove out in a classic car in Modesto. That did not happen this time around. But it was good to get back to John Thurman Field, home of the Modesto Nuts, who are now a Mariners affiliate. They won the California League Championship this year, and have a good team this year. And the game I went to, I often don't spend all that much time watching the game itself, but I had some time at the end. They were down 11-2 like after 6 innings, and came back and won 12-11 in 10 innings. So it was a furious comeback, and so it was cool to see like a truly memorable ending to a baseball game, them completing that comeback. And I think that speaks to the mentality of the team that they've had there the last couple of years. I talked to their manager. I interviewed him, and I'm blanking on his name. Sam, who's the Modesto Nuts manager?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm so sorry.
I should definitely know, but he was a nice guy, younger guy. Talked about how the team's motto became "Go ahead," like go ahead. Go ahead, go ahead. I don't know exactly how you pronounce that. Gahhead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, Zach Vinci.
Yeah, Zach
Vinci.
Vinci, yeah, Zach Vinci. Yeah, nice young guy. He said he played in Bakersfield in 2014, so he was familiar with the Cali.
I was going to say, I remember him more from the Reds system.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I have a lot of memories of him as a player and not nearly as many. He also was just on a roster as recently as 2021, and now he's managing in the minor leagues. He's only, what is he now? 33 years old. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's like Sam Dykstra type age.
Zach Vinci,
yeah.
I think I said Vinci. I meant Vinci. But yeah, from Malibu, he's You're younger than me. I don't like any of this. I mean, congrats to Zach for getting a minor league managing job so quick. It's a great sign for him, but
Damn, it only
you're
gets
younger than
worse.
me.
It
I know.
only gets worse from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
from what I'm no expert on. See, I couldn't even remember his name, but in talking to some people in the front office and before the game, seems like he's really well regarded, among the fans and in the clubhouse, and it was described to me as a real players manager. And that team is, as I said, they won the championship last year in Zach's first season as a manager, and they've got that dog in them, coming back and having a comeback like that. My designated eater was a guy named Travis Sullins. They there was a food truck out there, a team food truck called Wally's Wagon, Wally being Wally the Walnut, one of the nut mascots. And what did we get out there? A burrito bowl. They were out of some of the more intriguing items. We got a burrito bowl, which you don't get a minor league ballpark too often. And they had a vendor who had birria tacos, which of course are fantastic and have become quite, I don't want to say a fad. I think they're here to stay, but they have, I don't think I'd even heard of birria tacos 5 years ago, and now pretty much anytime you go to a taco place, they have them, and they come with the broth. That didn't happen at the game. They did not have the broth that went with it. The consomme. That's how you say it. I looked to Sam for confirmation.
I don't. Yeah,
It's consomme, right? Or is it? Maybe not. Maybe.
it's a French taco.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Listen to this guy.
It is really good. It is birria tacos, or birria tacos, as you accurately say. I've always said birria, and then I was in Mexico a couple weeks ago, and somebody said birria, and I was like, oh, I've been saying this wrong the entire time. Just like the main area of Mexico City is the Zocalo, and I called it the Zocalo for years. So I'm dumb, but that's nothing new. Please continue.
But John Thurman Field is a pretty fairly no frills kind of ballpark. I don't know when it was built, 30 some years ago. But just not an open concourse, concourse behind the ballpark where the food areas are and the restrooms and whatnot, and then just a simple seating area with bleachers on the right and left side. And you just go there and watch some baseball. And I mentioned Wally the Walnut. He was there. I got my picture with him. I got my picture with Al Almond, and it didn't occur to me till after the game. I was like, wait, where was Shelly the Pistachio? Who had just been introduced last time I was in Modesto in 2016. So I had forgotten to check in on Shelly's whereabouts. But I hope Shelly's doing okay, and I was sad to miss her.
He's just afraid of texting her, just being like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm here. Are you here?"
Yeah, I know.
We've all been there, Ben. That's not a fun
thought-
text to send.
I know. I thought the word would have gotten out that I was there, and I was just expecting her like a tap on my shoulder and a real heartwarming reunion. But Shelly didn't want to see the traveling minor league baseball writer. That's okay. But I hope she's doing well. So it was good. It was good to be back there. First time in 8 years, and then drove to Stockton that night because it's only about half an hour away. I think when those two teams play each other, Modesto and Stockton in the Cali League, they don't even, those are commuter trips.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's shorter than my commute to the office.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like a half-hour drive, 35 minutes maybe. So drove rode to Stockton after the game. So I had the full day Saturday, May 4th in Stockton. Of course, good to be back there. I've known the team owner, Pat Philippone, for a long time, so always good to see him. It was Star Wars night, so they had members of the 501st Legion, which, even though I'm not a Star Wars guy, just always just a great visual to have the stormtroopers and Darth Vader and those kind of characters wandering around the concourse and on the field prior to the game. That kind of thing. What happened there? What happened in Stockton? A jambalaya rice bowl with my designated eater, Stephanie Leung, who became designated eater because her boyfriend, Derek Nyquist, was my designated eater in Modesto in 2016. And so when she started dating this guy, or was thinking about dating him, and was doing her like pre-date, investigative work, being like, who is this guy? The top Google result for her, the man who is now her boyfriend, was being a designated eater in Modesto. And she was like, okay, seems like a cool thing.
That's just some strong SEO work on your part, I think.
Yeah. So this guy's top hit. And I think about that. That's probably the case for a lot of designated eaters, who maybe don't have a huge online presence, which is probably a better way to live, to be honest. you know, you become a designated eater, be careful. That's what's going to come up pretty quickly when people look you up. But he had his designated eater shirt on, and so it was cool to have this couple now united in designated eater. The jambalaya sausage rice bowl was I think the most interesting item we got. Talked to some very interesting fans. I talked to this one guy, his name is Pat Riley, and you know, he goes to the game all the time, and he was just like, the two things I really like to do are wrestling and square dancing, and you can't do either of those anymore in Stockton. And it kind of went from there. Guy with a lot of one-liners, dry sense of humor. Anything I'd say to him, he'd just look at me like, huh? Like, well, this guy, and then he'd just go on some non sequitur. So I hope I can turn that to a story. I like just talking to the eccentrics. But that ballpark, you know, has been around for better part of 2 decades now, but you know, it's very much a modern ballpark, 360-degree concourse, plenty of room to move. They're an A's affiliate, and it rained all day, and then it was cold at night, but at least they were able to get the game in. The other 2 times I've been in Stockton, it was like Monday nights, Tuesday nights, and I was like, okay, this time I'm coming on a Saturday. And then of course it rains and it's cold, but what can you do? Them's the breaks, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
In the biz.
And your final stop was in Sacramento, which is something we've talked a lot about on this show. Of, you know, the future of Sacramento is that they will have a major league team next year when the A's go there, but the River Cats aren't going anywhere. River Cats are still the only team playing in there, at least on a regular basis. So what was your day like in Sacramento?
Well, first of all, it was just beautiful day. So while in Stockton it was wet most of the day and then cold at night, this was a Sunday afternoon, just perfect day for baseball. Good early season crowd, you know, families out on the berm, on the grass, just enjoying the day. It's a beautiful ballpark. I'd forgotten how pretty it is, and they have this whole garden area out, you know, down the third base side and in right field. So there's just trees and grass and shade and plenty of room to move about. You know, no one's really talking on the record about the A's at all, so you just kind of have to extrapolate and look around and just kind of guess what that'll be like, because I'm sure they're going to do some things this offseason. It's going to be a real tall order to play 156 games between AAA and Major League Baseball, so it'll be really interesting logistically how that works out. But the ballpark itself is just a great, beautiful AAA ballpark, and it was really good to be there. Before the game, I talked to Donovan Walton. This is probably one of the stranger interview requests that he's ever gotten. You know, he's a veteran guy, you know, more like a utility man, spent some time in the majors. But I talked to him specifically because he pitched on April 2nd and April 4th and won both of the games, and was the first quote unquote pitcher on the staff to win 2 games this year, even though he's a position player. And both those games were 9-8 extra inning wins against the Reno Aces. So I was like, that's so weird that this dude won 2 games in 3 days as a position player pitching by the same score in extra innings to the same team. So talked to him before the game. My designated eater, shout out to Leroy David, you know, longtime supporter of minor league baseball in general, and certainly the work that I do. He showed up with a custom made piece of art that had a drawing of me kind of superimposed atop the road trip graphic showing the locations of where I went, and in a frame. And that was just really great to see. And oh man, he was a great designated eater just in terms of knowing the assignment, but great food in Sacramento. You got the chili cheese dinger dog, which is like a foot long hot dog, you know, top of chili cheese, Gold Rush fries that had, you know, pulled pork and cheese and scallions and sour cream. There's a barbecue stand, the Sacktown Smokehouse, which I believe has standalone locations elsewhere in the city. You know, got like a brisket and chicken wing plate with all sorts of sides. I mean, you could just eat to your heart's content at that ballpark, you know, provided you've got the stomach and the wallet for it. But, you know, really good options there. And yeah, really interesting, a great ballpark to be at regardless, but of course, particularly interesting now that you're wondering how it's going to be in the near future when they host Major League Baseball for what's supposed to be 3 seasons. So that will be an interesting situation for sure. And it was Copa night, or Copa Day, and their identity is the Dorados, a wrestling themed identity. I spoke to a woman named Ashley, blanking on her last name at the moment, but she's a Mexico native who works for the team now. So she had all sorts of like great supplementary things going on for this Copa day at the ballpark that really brought it above and beyond, you know, with some of the between inning contests and the food items, the music. It felt like there's a lot of buy-in there with the Copa identity, which isn't necessarily the case at every ballpark, just in terms of the activation and execution. But Sacramento is doing it really, really well.
Sometimes I get caught with my mic muted and I think, oh, I have a thought here. And then I have to like find the mouse and unmute my mic. Ben, the swings through California, always cool because you just got it. Minor league baseball does feel a little bit different in the Cal League, the Pacific Coast League, which obviously has shifted its footprint and not quite as heavily in California anymore. But I mean, it had been a while. Was there anything, and you've touched on this a little bit, but was there anything that really stuck out to you as, oh yeah, this feels a lot different for better or worse than the last time I was in California, observing minor league baseball, getting to check out some of these ballparks. I know, like we said a moment ago, it had been 8 years since you had been in Sacramento, I believe. So obviously a lot's changed.
Yeah, but I think just being there for a night at each of these places, it felt more like, wow, for all the change in minor league baseball. And there's been a lot just in terms of how the teams operate and, Major League Baseball taking over and, just a totally different landscape in a lot of ways that, it just still felt very familiar. And there weren't any instances where I was like, whoa. I think one of the big differences is it's a combination of how I approach my job and also like relationships with the front office. There's been so much industry turnover. And now I feel like a lot of my readership and listenership is more fan first and industry second. I think when I was coming up and establishing this job, it was industry first because no one had ever really done what I was doing and covering the industry in real time. So, and then I'm older, so I'm a little less participatory now than I used to be, but I had all those memories like, man, when I was in San Jose, I got on the field and I did the Smash for Cash promo, which sadly doesn't exist anymore, but where they bring out a bread truck onto the field and you throw baseballs at the headlights and try to smash the headlights on the bread truck. And I remember being out in the field and doing that in San Jose. I remember, as I said before, riding out in a limousine in Modesto, a classic car, prior to the game. In Stockton, I remember singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" on the dugout and quote unquote dancing for my dinner on the field. And there's a video somewhere of me dancing like an idiot, on the field in Stockton. And of course, Sacramento is where I suited up as Ronald Reagan in the heads of state governor's race and really thought I was going to pass out afterwards. And that was like a kind of significant moment for me realizing that I maybe shouldn't just say yes to everything. But I think that's something I'm struggling with a little bit is how to position myself. I think if I've gotten older, I feel like people don't need to see me doing all this stuff. And I feel a little, and if I'm only there one night, these between inning contests take time because you have to be ready for it before it starts. And sometimes there just isn't the time. But I was having kind of a lot of self-interrogation of like, should I put myself out there more? Does it matter that I'm in my 40s now and I did this in my 30s a different way? I don't know. There's no right answers. I struggle like all of us just trying to figure out how to do this. But to me, those are the biggest differences, just in that I'm a little more in the background than I used to be in terms of how I present these things. But we'll figure it out. And look at that. Sam.
He's already uncovered it.
He's already found this video of me dancing on the field in Stockton.
The gyrations that are happening here. I'm gonna have to embed this in the podcast story we do each week that essentially serves as our show notes. But man, Ben, let's talk about being a younger man. The dance moves.
Man, I put my arms behind my head and then gyrated.
And then you just let the hips do the talking.
I gotta say, these are some impressive moves.
Yeah, very thrust forward dance.
Yeah, that was where I was.
That's like how it was described on the Discovery Channel. It's a very thrust forward dance.
Yeah, and like so does it matter that then I was in my 30s, now I'm in my 40s. Does it matter? Do people look and be like, that man's too old to be doing this? Is this all in my head? Is it because I want to do it less? I don't know.
I think we need to get you to dance for your dinner in 2024 and just compare the moves.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I think there'd be less thrusting, I gotta say.
He's a father now.
Yeah.
Ben Van Hill, you can find on social media at Ben's Biz and The Ben's Biz on Twitter and Instagram. Ben, what's up next? What's next on the road trip docket? We're nearing the middle of May. What's the next departure date for you?
Yeah, next month's trip, and we really have some details to work out that not worth getting into now, but for now it is an itinerary that starts in Rickwood for the minor league game on June 18th. and then uses that region, then uses that as a jumping off point to Memphis and Arkansas and Northwest Arkansas, and feel like at least one other place. I got to check the notes, but that is in June 18th. So until then, over the next month plus, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming from this road trip. Weekly recaps of each ballpark visit on the newsletter, as well as standalone articles on MILB, MLB.com, and I've got at least 7 or 8 standalone articles to write up in the near future. And next week we'll talk about a new team identity for a team debuting in 2025 So
those pieces together.
Yeah. So
you internet sleuths.
Yeah. So, as much as I'm focused on the road trips, there's still just the industry at large to cover as well, and a lot of stuff going on there.
All right, Ben, we'll catch you next week.
Not if I catch you first.
When you're worried about underarm sweat and odor, it can be distracting. Like this. Or this. Or even this. It's time to silence those distractions with a spray of powerful Dove Men Plus Care Antiperspirant. Featuring our 72-hour protection and soothing 1/4 moisturizing cream. Because when you forget about your underarms, you can focus on being unforgettable. Dove Men. Forgettable underarms, unforgettable you.
Well, it's time to talk about the biggest prospect headline of the season so far, arguably, and one that really the last month of the Show Before the Show podcast has been kind of leading up to and teasing. And we are all about discussing the biggest on-field headlines around the game of baseball here on the Show Before the Show. So we're going to first discuss how on Sunday I played my first competitive baseball game in 16 years, and I got hit by a pitch in the same elbow twice.
See, this is why I quit baseball, quit playing baseball, because I have a enormous respect for anybody who steps in the box against anything moving faster than 70 miles per hour. So I respect you, Tyler, for getting back out there, but man, you really had to wear it, huh?
It did not feel good. Let me just put that out there. I immediately, on the drive home from the game, I went online and ordered a Barry Bonds style elbow guard. So that's arriving today. So I'm excited for that. But I think I'm off. I'm gonna avoid the DL. We have this week off for Mother's Day. We only play on Sundays. We have this week off for Mother's Day. So I'll be okay by the time. But man, this dude was he had some pretty decent velocity and just crushed me on the left elbow. First one sort of deflected off. I was like, okay, I think I got a second one, just full bore, just right into the back of my arm.
Yeah, but where's the OBP stand right now?
Oh yeah, exactly. It's at 1,000.
Yeah,
so,
you're 2 times on base. So
feel pretty good about that. Yeah. So if anybody wants to throw a contract out there for me, I would listen. I'd entertain offers. And that obviously is the biggest on-field story for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. But maybe the second biggest, a dude who I would not want to get hit by, the top pitching prospect in baseball, Paul Skenes, is headed to the Pittsburgh Pirates, the first overall selection of last year's MLB draft, who has put together a preposterously good start to this season at the AAA level with Indianapolis. Finally, this is the news that we've been waiting for quite some time. Paul Skenes, really as good as it gets as a pitching prospect, a guy who's got an 80 grade fastball and mixes in 18 other pitches that are also 65 grade plus. Sam, your initial reaction, this is something that we obviously assumed was coming, but to finally get this news that Paul Skenes is on the way to Pittsburgh, he'll make his major league debut this weekend. Really exciting stuff for Pirates fans.
Yeah, I mean, news broke Wednesday when the Pirates just tweeted out, 5/11/24 and a hype video of Paul Skenes, and obviously everybody in the baseball world knew what that meant. Even as of 2 days ago, it was believed that he would be starting for Indianapolis over the weekend. I think even the Pirates manager, Derek Shelton, said something to the effect of as of right now, he's scheduled to pitch over the weekend. Plans change. I'm not saying he was lying, but it's nice to get confirmation that we know Paul Skenes is headed to the bigs, because we've known for a while now that he is major league ready. His pitches are certainly major league ready, and the results have been as well. Tyler, he has a 0.99 ERA in 7 starts at Indianapolis, 45 strikeouts, only 8 walks, and 27 1/3 innings, a 0.91 WHIP, a 175 average against. A lot of those are among AAA leaders, with among pitchers with at least 25 innings pitched. The big question for Skenes has always been they've been about his workload, right? Like they've been slowly building him up in terms of innings, in terms of pitches. You look at how many innings he's thrown per start, and this is going back to his first start back in March. 3 innings, 3 innings, 3 1/3, 3 1/3, 4 1/3, 6, and then 4 1/3 in his final outing for the Indians against Buffalo last weekend. But it's the stuff that is the reason for excitement. As good as those numbers are, you mentioned, the fastball is the big headline grabber for him. Certainly, he averaged 99.9 miles per hour on the fastball at AAA. He makes it look easy. It's not looking like he's overthrowing. It certainly helps that he is a listed 6'5", or 6'6", excuse me. I don't want to cheat him out of an inch. 6'6". So he's a big, strong thrower of the baseball. He's been adding velocity over his time in college. You look back to who he was at Air Force when he actually started as a catcher and was a closer for that team, and then eventually transferred to LSU to be an ace for a national championship winning club. Back then, when he first got to Air Force, he was fastball changeup. Then they added the slider, which is arguably his second best pitch. It had a whiff rate of 42.9%. So above 40% of swings against that slider at AAA were swing and miss. With that slider, he can throw a short version, which is almost like a cutter, or he can throw a longer version, which is almost like a sweeper. Having talked to him, and anybody who listened to the show heard that conversation a few weeks back in Indianapolis, it's something he just kind of decides. He knows certain batters struggle more against more movement. Some guys need that harder slider. They can't face it as well. It's really fascinating to hear about that conversation and that decision-making process. And for the most part, his catcher knows which of the two is coming, but not all the time. So it's something they have to kind of keep in mind of, like, which version am I getting? The one that isn't moving much horizontally, or the one that could have like 16 inches of sweep? It's fascinating that Paul Skenes has both of those in his pocket. Another headline grabber in the last few months has been his quote-unquote splinker, which acts like a sinker. And it's something he even said, like, I think of it as a sinker. He was trying to add a sinking pitch back to his repertoire because he knew pro hitters could hit velocity. So he's like, if I get something with more movement, that could certainly help me out. But he found a grip basically because his finger kind of slipped that was more like a split grip, but he still throws it 94.7 miles an hour on average. And yet it has a spin rate below 2,000 RPMs, which is basically like a splitter. The only pitch like it is Yohan Duran of the Minnesota Twins. Duran throws it a little bit harder than Skenes does, and he'll be the first person to remind you of that fact. But it's not completely unique, obviously, if there's one other out there, but it's just not seen by anybody else. So he's got that pitch that kills spin. He has a true changeup that averages 87.8 miles an hour, so it's like another layer of velo down. That pitch has a 100% whiff rate. He hasn't thrown it a ton, and he's only thrown it 7.3% of the time, but it gives him a weapon against lefties as well. And he's got a curveball kind of in the back of his pocket, low 80s, kind of flips it in there for a strike. He's thrown 11 of them. I think 5 have been with 0-0 counts, just to seal a strike. If you're sitting 100 miles an hour and all of a sudden this guy's dropping a breaking ball in to the zone at low 80s, you're probably not swinging, and all of a sudden Paul Skenes is up 0-1, which is a huge advantage when you have swing and miss stuff like his. He throws strikes. He's proven to be durable going back to his time in college. The Pirates have been very meticulous about adding innings and adding pitches, but the velo is held pretty much every game as he's gone deeper and deeper into starts, so that's not really a concern right now. I'm really excited. I mean, this is maybe the most highly anticipated debut by a pitcher since Steven Strasburg. And Tyler, you and I, we're roughly the same age. You remember when Strasburg came up? He was a generational ace.
I remember hearing about Strasburg. I mean, when he was at San Diego State and was on the USA Baseball Olympic team for the 2008 games in Beijing. I mean, that was like pretty much unheard of for a collegiate player in that era to be on an Olympic team. And Steven Strasburg was that good. And yeah, it was the era still kind of before social media. I mean, Twitter was sort of getting going in like 2007, 2008, 2009 when Steven Strasburg was really catching fire, but he was almost like a Paul Bunyan figure where you heard these stories about, oh, this dude, he throws 5, 6 pitches. He's, low 100s with regularity. Yeah, an incredible story. And Paul Skenes is essentially, kind of a recreated version of that, which it is also very hard for me to believe that it's been, 16, 17 years now since we were hearing those things about Steven Strasburg, who still in my mind should be like 26. But yeah, very similar stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at actually who they are as pitchers, Skenes throws harder than Strasburg does. They are kind of the pitchers of their era in that way. Like when Strasburg was coming up and he was touching 96, 97 regularly, that was awe-inducing. Now that's a little bit more commonplace. And in that same way, Skenes' stuff is kind of ticked up too. I'm really interested to see how this goes. I'm not worried about the moment being too big for him. It's a Saturday start against the Cubs at home. Like that's a huge deal in Pittsburgh. It's going to be the toughest ticket to get, I think, of their season. We've seen hitters struggle with that transition from AAA to the majors. Obviously, Jackson Holliday being the prime example. His was even more arguably highly anticipated because he was the number 1 overall prospect when he got called up. Skenes is a touch below that just because of the fickleness of pitchers. But I think stuff is stuff. Like as long as you know how to throw your stuff, and Paul Skenes certainly does. He understands sequencing. He understands it's not just me blowing by guys. Like I can do that, but I need to take that next step. We talked last week about Christian Scott and truly understanding player development and pitcher development and taking your game to a new level. Paul Skenes could have just shown up with a fastball and slider and been like, this worked at LSU. I don't need much else. He wanted to take on that challenge of finding a sinker, and the fact that it transformed into something else, he kind of went with it, right? Like he could have just been like, oh, I don't want to throw a splinter. I want to force this sinker to happen because that was my initial goal. And he's like, no, I actually found a pitch that works really well and is unique. And this is now part of my repertoire. So even if he takes maybe a lump or two early, which I don't anticipate happening unless he like leaves something really over the zone, I think he's prepared to hit the ground running. And it's a major question of like, how many innings can the Pirates get out of him? But you look at Jared Jones that they've had to start the year, and he's one of the favorites to win Rookie of the Year. Skenes has some catching up to do in that regard, but that's a heck of a 1-2 punch. And they're going to have those guys, knock on wood that they're both healthy, those guys in the rotation together for a very, very long time. And, we've said before, like Skenes the future ace, and I think he is. Let's check back in a year and see who is actually the true ace of that team. Is it Skenes or is it Jones? Because Jones has developed quite nicely himself and has that head start of major league success. And that's a great position for Pittsburgh to be in.
There's a really great story up at MLB.com from Alex Stumpf about the creation essentially of this next level talent who is joining the Pirates. The headline is the making of Paul Skenes, a quote, 1 in a decade, unquote, kind of pitcher. There's some really great stories in there, some really great conversations with members of Paul Skenes' families and coaches, and including his Air Force Academy former pitching coach there and current pitching coach at Boston College, Ryan Forrest, who is the guy who I have known since he was like 10 years old, as completely random as that is. We just grew up. My best friend was his cousin, very random. So I just snapped a picture of that and sent it to him on Instagram. Was like, hey, I know this guy who's being quoted in this story. But there's some really interesting stuff in there from Ryan, who gives the assessment that he thinks as a catcher, Paul Skenes would have been a first-round pick. I mean, that's the level of talent that he has across the board. Maybe it wouldn't have happened that way, but had he stuck with just the bat, we went over his offensive numbers at the Air Force Academy from his first couple seasons a couple weeks ago on the podcast. It just goes to show you the level of athleticism and talent and the dynamism and what he does on the field. I also love there's a quote from Paul Skenes in there where he says, "Baseball is the only sport I ever wanted to play." And that's cool because we learn so often, we're beaten over the head so often these days with how kids aren't interested in baseball, despite what actual numbers and facts say. And it is kind of cool to see high level talent say, no, this was the game for me. I wanted this from the outset. That's a cool thing.
Yeah. I mean, in speaking to him, you can tell how much he loves the game. Every development he's taken out of pure joy of the game and wanting to be dominant and wanting to understand the game better. He is truly a student of baseball. That didn't just stop because he went to the pros instead of college. And you can't teach 100 miles an hour. I get that. Otherwise, everybody would have it in their back pocket. He has great physical traits, but I think it's that mental side of the game that he is. It seems like, in conversations with him and what I've read and seen from other people, he's fully bought in on that. And that's how you make a true ace. It's not just on pure talent alone.
He also, man, he's joining a Pirates team. I was thinking about this yesterday because I'm currently doing a March to October on MLB The Show. I had it randomized. The Pirates were the team that came up. I spent a year working for the Pirates. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Let's try this with the Pirates. Am I crazy? I'm kind of on board with what the Pirates have right now. Like, the Pirates have a lot of fun young talent. The Pirates have some dudes that I find very exciting. I don't know if they have enough that they're gonna, make a run to win the National League Central, but like, I look around at that Pirates roster and I think to myself, like, yeah, there's a lot on this that I like. Am I crazy, Sam?
No, you're not crazy. I mean, I think we all thought coming into the year that the NL Central was going to be pretty wide open.
Yeah.
And as we sit here, the Pirates are below 500. I think they got off to a solid start, and they are coming a little bit back
at 17 and 21.
Yeah. So it hasn't come together perfectly for them. But again, when you have Paul Skenes and Jared Jones at the top of your rotation, and Mitch Keller, who signed a contract extension in the offseason, and Brian Reynolds was like a trade target for a lot of people a while back. He's been arguably their best hitter once again this season. Not a stellar year for him necessarily, but still good. Ke'Bryan Hayes is always going to affect the game with his glove at third base. We've talked about that since his days as a prospect. And then one of my fascinating things about the season is the reclamation project that is Joey Bart.
Yeah.
Joey Bart for years couldn't quite make it in San Francisco, despite being a very prominent draft pick. The pieces weren't coming together. They pick him up after he was DFA'd by San Francisco. As we sit here right now, Joey Bart has a 790 OPS in 49 plate appearances. Now he's hitting a $195, so I'm sure some things are going to kind of even out there over time. But 5 of his 8 hits have been for extra bases. He's always had power, and it got to the point where they actually optioned Henry Davis back to AAA Indianapolis because they wanted to keep Joey Bart on the roster. So there's some interesting pieces here. I like Termarr Johnson, but he's a few years away, and he's not off to a great start himself at High A Greensboro. I would like to see a few more bats in this system, but hey, pitching comes at a premium, and they have the arms to build a contender around. And maybe all this year is like getting Skenes and Jones together on that team, on the major league squad, getting them set, and then they make some moves in the offseason and really build around them offensively.
2 other dudes who don't sleep on O'Neal Cruz. I know he struggled a little bit.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
How about the potential resurgence / reemergence of Nick Gonzalez? Nick Gonzalez so far this season with AAA Indianapolis, obviously overshadowed by Paul Skenes, but the former 7th overall pick in 2020. Nick Gonzalez, A, is still only 24 years old, and B, he is currently hitting .358 with a 1039 OPS. This season for AAA Indianapolis. So maybe there's, maybe we see the emergence of Nick Gonzalez that we kind of waited on for a little while. A guy who in his big league time has not hit the ball maybe like people would have hoped to this stage, but still young. I don't know. There are some pieces with that Pirates organization right now that I think are pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, that NL Central is pretty wide open. Brewers and Cubs are 1-2 right now. Nick Gonzalez, having seen him in Indianapolis, the guy's geared up to be a doubles machine. I mean, it's the way he's impacting the ball right now. The advanced stats or the under the hood numbers back up what he's doing. This is not just somebody who's run into a really good month plus. I'm interested in it. I want him to get his chance soon.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that happened when I saw him, I think there were like 2 guys on base and he bunted. And you're like sitting there, this guy's the hottest player in the International League. Why are they having him? But that might be his role. By the time you get, you need to practice that. You can't just show up and not having practice.
In your bag of tricks.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So they're preparing Nick Gonzalez to win an infield spot in Pittsburgh. And yeah, hopefully brighter times are ahead. But Paul Skenes arriving is a major point in the development of that system.
All right, Sam, we are nearing that stage of the season where we're going to start seeing prospect graduations from guys who opened the year on major league rosters, which means that a slight reordering or updating of the MLB Pipeline Top 100 is in order. Give us a preview of some of these graduations. Who's headed potentially onto the Top 100 list?
Yeah, so it's, we're doing this on Sunday night into Monday. I'm not going to give away anybody's placement on the list, but I'll let you guys know about just some names to kind of keep an eye on, because Jackson Churio is graduating officially Sunday night. Colt Keith is graduating officially Sunday night. Jared Jones, the aforementioned, will be graduating that night as well. Wyatt Langford will not. He's currently on the injured list, therefore not active. So his days of active service don't count towards graduation. So just a heads up on that. If you see Wyatt Langford still on the top 100, and of course he will be, that is the reason for that. But we use that as an opportunity to do what we call market corrections, where we vote myself, as I count twice, myself, Jonathan Mayo, and Jim Callis. We revote completely on the top 15, and then we move guys below that 10 spots up or 10 spots low. We're not going to do any fine tuning of like this guy's dropping 2 spots. It's not. We just want to course correct a little bit to account for hot starts or some really concerning trends that we might be seeing in other areas. So just some names to kind of keep an eye out for. One I'll throw out there, James Wood, who right now is our number 12 overall prospect. I'm not going to say where he's going to go, but it's pretty clear to anybody who's been following James Wood's start to the season that he will be jumping up pretty comfortably. There's not a lot of room for him to jump up comfortably, but he will be jumping up comfortably when we did our top 15 vote. Had some strikeout concerns last year at AA, was young for that level. I won't say he's erased them at AAA. They're still there a little bit because it's such a big zone for him, but he's impacting the ball incredibly well, playing a good center field, still running like the wind with those big, long strides. I know a lot of people in DC want him up tomorrow. It's not going to quite work out that way. He's struggled against lefties. There's some other concerning trends with him, but James Wood been one of the younger guys at AAA all season and has kept up his momentum after a really good spring. He actually had a 2-homer day on Wednesday. So the power is always going to play for James Wood, and we're going to reflect that in the updated list. Some other guys who might be added to the list or might be climbing significantly. We talked about Christian Scott last week, how he debuted for the Mets against the Rays, had a really strong debut. Looked very much like what he had done at Syracuse, which was got off to a little bit of a rough start, gave up a run in the first inning, and then completely figured everything out the rest of the way. I think he finished with 6 2/3 innings in his debut in Tampa Bay. He's a Florida native, former Florida Gator, so that must have been special for him to pitch in that state and that location. But beyond that, I mean, he spots the fastball really well. He's transformed himself from a sinker slider guy to a fastball, four-seam fastball type, and he throws tons of strikes. The sweeper has been really good. That's a pitch he added this year. He's got a tighter slider as well that he can use against lefties. I like his changeup. Didn't throw it too much in that first debut against the Rays, but I think that's something he's got in his back pocket. And then when you start to see the upper level experience and success that he's had, you start comparing him to other pitchers, and he started climbing. I mean, we have him at number 100 right now because we just got him on the list. We wanted to see how this stuff would hold up at AAA. It's done that really well, and if this continues, I mean, it's comfortably mid-rotation stuff for Christian Scott, maybe even more than that, if he can keep hitters guessing like he has. So he's going to be jumping above 100. Andy Pages of the Dodgers will be another guy who's going to climb. He was somebody who missed a good chunk of last year with, I think, shoulder surgery. But we added him because he's always impacted the ball pretty well, and the Dodgers called him up, and he's been arguably one of their most productive hitters. Yes, I would like to see him walk more, but he's hitting the ball well. He's not struggling in his first call up to the bigs in the way that many others have, and that's pretty instructive for us on where to put him. They've played him in both center and right field. He's probably going to end up in a corner eventually, but to give the Dodgers an option up the middle with his impact bat, he'll be jumping up pretty comfortably from his spot at number 92. So those are two names to look out for. We'll be adding a few names as well. We'll be dropping guys off the top 100. I don't want to give too much of a spoiler beyond that, but keep an eye out on Sunday going into Monday, and I'm sure we'll discuss more in detail when the full list is out next week.
Sam, if you had to ballpark it, 38-year-old going on 39,000 OBP, anywhere in that top 100 rank.
I would have to ask.
I should phrase it this way: where in the top one?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. I was going to say I'll have to talk to Jim and Jonathan about that. Right now, I'm going to tentatively put you on we have a tab of all the ranked prospects in baseball, and then we have one for next on the list. We call it 31 to 33 because we rank top 30s. I'm going to put you on the 31 to 33, which is like a close follow. I want to see how the bat's going to translate.
Yeah, once I actually get a chance to swing, you mean?
Yeah. I think that batted ball data is something I need to see before I put you on top 30. But you're a candidate, and that's a good start.
We can start with modest expectations. When Jason Dominguez first got signed and they were comparing him to like Mickey Mantle and Mike Trout and whatever, I'm not saying that's like my floor, but like just start thinking of those superlatives for however you want to write up my blurb.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about who you're signing with, so I guess that's also dependent on.
I got to field these offers, Sam. It all comes down to the amount of zeros at the end, my friend.
Come to me first, and I will tell you. You're like, I have an offer from the Angels, and I have an offer from the Orioles, and I'll be like, well, you're not making the Orioles list, but the Angels, you have a chance. So. Depends on how much you want to see your name up on MLB Pipeline.
Are you asking for bribes? Is that what's
I'm not asking? No, I'm not asking. No.
Wow.
No. I'm saying I would just let you know, and then you can decide there. Like I will give you the ballpark on where you would rank on a certain team's list.
Oh, I see.
I'm not taking any. I want to be 100%
Sam was tugging on his earlobe and tapping his nose there.
I didn't say anything about taking.
I said signing, but whoa! I didn't say anything about that. Whoa, my intent.
Kid, you literally said, "Are you taking?"
No, I was mimicking you. I was saying that you were saying Sam's integrity is unimpeachable.
Thank you. That's going to be the clip.
Only I am the jackass on this show, as we all know from a decade of having been subjected to it. No, he's the greatest. And of course, you can read all of Sam and Jim and Jonathan's stuff on the updated Top 100 and all the rest at MLB Pipeline. And we will step aside. We know who the number one prospect in looking back on the ghosts of minor league baseball past is, and that is Josh Jackson, who swings by with Ghosts of the Minors right now.
Looking for a job is lonely. Endless searching, phone calls that go nowhere, applications that vanish into thin air. What if you could link with dozens of local companies who are hiring right now with just one connection? That's Express Employment Professionals. Find us at expresspros.com. One connection, endless opportunities, and no fees ever for job seekers. Express Employment Professionals. expresspros.com.
Interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Minors. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Minors, in which all of you out there in Radio Land must identify the legitimate historical ball club or player hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One once busted fences at the ball yard. The others are penned up in our imaginations. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball players did at one time exist. A. Ape Certain. B. Mule Shirley. C. Oxen Didi. You're definitely if you picked B. Mule Shirley, who played nearly 1,000 minor league games in leagues scattered all over the eastern, central, and southern United States across nearly 20 seasons. A North Carolinian born Ernest Rayford Shirley in the beautiful Greene County town of Snow Hill in May of 1901, Shirley stood out on the ball field from an early age, serving as captain on the UNC baseball team as well as fullback on the Tar Heels football team and the president of the university's athletic association before matriculating and beginning law school. But Mule needed a life on the grass. and the Washington Senators courted the attorney-not-to-be onto the field. You can be certain the Mule moniker was with Shirley from the jump. In 22, while he was at UNC, the Greensboro Daily News reported from a Tar Heels victory over Virginia, Mule Shirley looks to the Jim Dandies as the premier first sack tender of Southern Collegiate Diamonds. It's hard to be sure how exactly Shirley spent every minute of that summer, but the bulk of it was on an amateur team, the New Bern Bears. A few sources today do have him appearing with the Richmond Colts of the Virginia League and the Martinsburg Blue Sox of the Blue Ridge League that season, but that information seems to be inaccurate. There are reports from the next year, 1923, that have him maintaining his amateur status while continuing to play for the Tar Heels and taking the field unpaid for semi-pro teams. Furthermore, it is absolutely definite Shirley was set to go from North Carolina Tar Heel to Norfolk Tar, as he agreed to a pro deal with the Virginia League's Norfolk Tars and remained inactive in 23 specifically so he could keep his eligibility with UNC. In 24, Norfolk sold Shirley up the river, the Potomac River, and Mule hauled himself up to Washington, where he earned a World Series ring with Bucky Harris's Senators. Although that was the end of Mule's labor in the majors, except for 14 games with Washington the next year, he began a minor league career that took him into his late 30s, and the late 30s. By 1934, when Shirley was playing his second straight year with the Chattanooga Lookouts of the Southern Association, he'd already also played in the International League, the Eastern League, the South Atlantic League, the American Association, the Mississippi Valley League, and the Texas League. That July 15, he took over as manager for the last place club, and by season's end had the Lookouts in 5th out of 8 places, 3 games above 500. He continued to play over the next several years, adding the New York Penn League, Kitty League, Carolina League, and Coastal Plains League to his resume, ultimately serving as player manager for the CBL's Goldsboro Goldbugs in 1938 and 1939, by the end of which he was 38 years old. There were rumors in the fall of 39 that Shirley would surely be back with Goldsboro in a contract that would last through the 41 campaign, but in January of 1940, new ownership took over the Goldbugs, and the one thing they were sure about was no Shirley. And that's how Mule Shirley got packed off. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams found its way to justice in the minors of yesteryear? A. The Eastland Judges. B. The Northborough Bandits. C. The Westerly Sheriffs. Want to know the answer? Get a compass. Or tune into the next Goes to the Minors. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill has left California, and I've got to help them slam the Golden Gate.
Saying goodbye on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Big thanks to Josh Jackson for swinging by with Ghosts of the Minors. Before we get out of here, we have the latest edition of the game show that's sweeping the nation. Name That Dude. Last week, I will never accomplish anything as I accomplished last week's solving of Name That Dude. That was my high water mark. It's all downhill from here. But as I understand it, we have 2 dudes this week that we are going to be naming. You each thought of a dude?
Yeah, independent of one another, Sam and I both thought of a dude, and then we said, okay, let's just double it up. There's enough dudes out there.
Yeah. We're not using up dudes. You know, the endless supply of dudes.
A lot of dudes.
All right. So we'll see how quickly you can get this one this week, Tyler. This player was drafted 3 times. I'm not going to say when or where the first one was. He was then drafted in the 7th round in 2001 out of the University of Michigan. And then in the 4th round of the 2002 draft, again from Michigan. That second time he signed with the Cubs. So this player started his career with the Cubs, drafted out of the University of Michigan. His first season was in 2002. He pitched 14 innings for Boise in the Northwest League.
This is wild.
Please tell me that you two picked the same dude.
We did.
Holy cow, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It was yours for a very specific reason because this guy was on the site.
No, I just came up to me as like a guy who was around forever and would be an interesting one. But
Wow.
I won't say it. I know exactly who it is because I could pull up the same player page
It'd be weird
online.
if you had different notes than I did. On this one.
Wow. Oh
So
man, now the pressure's on. Now I'm the only one who can guess, and I'm
is
last week
wild.
notwithstanding.
I
don't
think there's a
I'm good
reason
at
for
names
this.
I
We can
do.
get into this off mic. I think there's a reason for this. But okay, Tyler. So it is fully on your shoulders now.
Wow.
2002. This guy threw 14 innings, so he is a pitcher. I guess I'm giving it away there for the Boise Hawks. 2003, pitched for Lansing at the time a single A affiliate. The Lansing Lugnuts, of course, also pitched for Boise again as a short season club, and the Daytona Cubs. So we're still in the Cubs system. In 2004, that's when he got to Daytona. 2005, he was with West Tennessee, what was their team name?
They the Diamond Jacks.
They were
Two
the Diamond
X's.
Jacks at the time.
Two X's at the end. Diamond.
Two X's at the end because they played in Jackson, Tennessee. 2005. So he was with Peoria once again. Or no, this was his first time with Peoria. Peoria, West Tennessee, and Iowa. And then also in 2005, he made his debut for the Cubs, had a 9.13 ERA in 10 appearances.
Woof.
Went back down to Iowa, was with the Cubs for a while, some rehab appearances in there as well, appeared for the Orioles in 2009. We won't go through all of his major league teams because there are a lot of them.
Yeah, although there is one interesting thing that when I was looking at this player page earlier, he pitched for the Angels in 2014, made 2 appearances, and recorded the ultra rare INF ERA.
Wow.
Did not record an out, but did give up runs. So
That was his entire Angels career, was an infinity ERA.
So
any
the
guesses
bulk-
so far?
So the bulk of his big league time was spent with the Cubs.
No,
Oh,
that's just where he started his
that's where
career.
he started his career.
Yes.
Uh,
He played 4 years for the Cubs total. The Cubs have his second most innings pitched.
I feel like Michigan product should give this away, but I might need a little more. There's somebody who's yelling at the podcast right now.
There could be.
Yeah, well, this is somebody too who made his debut in 2005 in the majors, but wasn't really solidified as first and foremost a major league pitcher for another decade.
Well, yeah, I mean, he appeared in 2005 for the Cubs, and then 2007 he pitched 195 innings for the team, had an 118 ERA plus that year. So he was an above average pitcher then, but he's had a lot of different roles for a lot of different teams.
Yeah, and was still in the minors on non-rehab assignments for a lot of those years after 2005. I crossed paths with him in 2015 in Pawtucket, actually.
He has played for 13 major league teams.
I feel like this should be way more obvious to me than it actually is.
Only 3 of those 13 has he appeared in multiple seasons for. So one is the Cubs. The other is the Dodgers. He played for both the Cubs and the Dodgers in 4 different seasons. The team he's played the most seasons for is the Red Sox.
Oh, why am I finding this so difficult?
Yeah, and 10 other teams 1 year apiece.
Yeah. Here's another hint. I don't know if this is going to give it away, but it was the one I was going to save for last. He's technically still active.
Really?
Yep.
Like how Matt Kemp announced his retirement last week, despite
No, this player legitimately is technically still active.
Okay. He spent 10 seasons with teams, just like 10 1-year stints with teams.
Not necessarily 1 year stint. So like the Angels count as 1 year, even though he only had 2 appearances for the team.
But yeah, only played in one specific.
Yeah, only played in one specific season for 10 different clubs.
You said the Dodgers were his I think. Does he have a very funny pseudonym?
He does have a very funny pseudonym.
Is it
Maybe
Rich
the
Hill?
all-time Players Weekend jersey.
Rich Hill.
Rich Hill is correct.
Yes.
So the clue I didn't give you
Wow.
is that he was drafted in the 36th round of the 1999 draft out of Milton, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And the reason why I picked him today is because Ian Brown, the Red Sox beat writer, had a story about Rich Hill in his newsletter this week, which is about Rich Hill is currently not pitching for a club, even though he got, I think, 3 major league offers in the offseason.
Wow.
Because he wants to be there for his son's Little League games in Milton.
Oh, that's adorable.
So it's this whole story of like, you can watch this stuff on FaceTime. I can hear about it later and be super happy for my son, but like, he's only going to hit so many Little League homers. I want to be there to see it. And he even compared it to like the excitement of having a ticket at Fenway Park. So that's my thought, is that maybe Ben also came across this somewhere.
I didn't. He just came to my mind randomly when I was just like racking my brain for veterans who spent a lot of time in the minors. Fascinating career. I mean, he has what, like 90 career major league wins, like, and he's 44 years old. You don't last that long and have such low totals, except that he just grinded it out. He didn't really become like a established major leaguer until well into his, at least, from season to season to season.
Rich Hill made 32 appearances, 27 starts last year between the Pirates and the Padres. That is nuts. If you look at his baseball reference page, it is like, I wish there was a way that you could just determine how many different lines there are in this. He played parts of 17 seasons in the minors, 19 seasons in the big leagues. He's listed as having 1 foreign season and 1 other season. I don't know what the other.
He played in the.
He played for Long Island.
Yeah.
That's right. He played with the Long Island Ducks.
Yeah.
That was all the way back in 2015, and that's kind of funny because that's like the Long Island Ducks for a long time were like where fringe old big league guys would go, like trying to save the last stages of their careers. That was 9 years ago that he did that, and then he was back in the big leagues like that season and the next season. I had completely forgotten that he went to Michigan. But I was like, Cubs, Dodgers, it has to be. Also, his nickname, I mean, I think we can say his name. Like you said, it was, it was Players Weekend jersey, but it's listed on Baseball Reference as just D Mountain.
Well, that's what was on his jersey.
Right.
Was D Mountain. So maybe we should just leave it there. And,
if you think of another nickname for Richard.
Yeah. Also on here, as his nickname is Field of Genes. And
Field of Genes, Genes. I don't know that. And also Bryce. Bryce? Huh? What? Bryce?
I don't know. I mean, one of my favorite games is to find out about nicknames on Baseball Reference, but I think D Mountain is the one we all know him best by.
D Mountain is the one. If we were, if it was the era of like Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball for the Super Nintendo, I think he would be in there as D Mountain. Rich Hill, 44 years old now, Rich Hill, which it has felt like Rich Hill has been 44 years old for the last 15 years. So good for Rich Hill, still hanging on. And I feel like, once Little League season is over, Rich Hill could be a contributor somewhere. Like if he gets his son's season in the background, then he's like, all right, I gotta go collect some big league paychecks. Like last year, he wasn't atrocious last year. Like he put up a 4.76 in 22 starts for a bad Pirates team. Somebody would take that.
Yeah. And Padres. He got picked up by the Padres.
Yeah. I mean,
Padres numbers were not quite as good.
You look at pitching injuries today, like you get a fresh arm.
Yeah.
A guy who
exactly.
Who knows how to do this. And
plus, he's 44. He might only have 50 innings in his arm this year. If you can get 50 quality innings, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. Well, big congrats to D Mountain for being our guy on this week's Name That Dude.
Unbelievable. We picked.
That's amazing.
And I didn't even see the story that Sam had.
That's amazing. The look on Ben's face, I knew that this was not a contrived thing. Ben was stunned that you guys had picked the same guys. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, he said starting the Cubs. I was like, that's a coincidence. And then 2002, I was like, that's a bigger coincidence. And then when he started starting in Boise and this and that, I was like, no.
The second I said Boise is when you were like, oh no.
That's of all the people in the history of baseball, for you to both have picked Rich Hill, D Mountain. Rich Hill, by the way, when he made his big league debut, was the 18,691st man to make his major league debut on June 15th of 2005. So there were a lot of dudes that you could have picked among, and you both picked D Mountain.
I'm just saying we could, Ricky Nolasco was on that 2002 Boise Hawks team. There are some dudes we could have also selected. Ronnie Cedeno was on that team. Giovanni Soto was on that team.
Yeah,
Felix
Giovanni
Paillet.
Soto.
Felix Paillet was on that team.
Giovanni Soto was a fun player for a little while. Same with Felix Paillet.
Yeah, and Rich Hill was actually the first player I interviewed for a feature story, a non-game recap, in maybe the off season heading into 2006. I forget the context, but I think maybe he won a MLB award or something like that and had a breakout season in Iowa. But I remember being like, oh, all nervous. I have to talk to a player on the phone. And I wrote a feature on Rich Hill, better part of 2 decades ago.
Did you have any conversations about potentially being related, Ben Hill and Rich Hill?
I don't recall that. We really should have if we didn't. I remember like the kind of better quotes I got from that interview were about various like self-help books and like religion philosophy texts that he had been reading that he credited with his improvement that year. And I don't know if he kept going down that path for the following 2 decades or what.
18 years after that.
Yeah, but maybe that story exists somewhere. I'll have to dig it up.
A very quick Google of Ben Hill, Rich Hill, Milby does not bring up a story, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. There could be a story.
Some of those early MILB.com articles have been
just
unfortunately have decayed and
vanished to the
disappeared.
ether of the internet.
Yeah, my archives. I gotta put my archives together.
Well, a fun edition of this week's Name That Dude. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. For Benjamin Hill, Sam Dykstra, Josh Jackson, Dick Mountain, and all the rest, my name is Tyler Mon, and we will catch you next week.
You don't just live in your home. You live in your neighborhood as well. So when you're shopping for a home, you want to know as much about the area around it as possible. Luckily, Homes.com has got you covered. Each listing features a comprehensive neighborhood guide from local experts. Everything you'd ever want to know about a neighborhood, including the number of homes for sale, transportation, local amenities, cultural attractions, unique qualities, and even things like median lot size and a noise score. Homes.com. We've done your homework. 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 We've done your homework.